Hello, my name is Jace Tunnell, and I'm the director of the Mission Aransas National Estuarine Research Reserve at the University of Texas Marine Science Institute in Port Aransas, Texas. Today I'm going to be talking to you about nurdles, and specifically my title is Nurdles Are Invading Our Beaches, Abundance and Distribution of Plastic Pellets Across the United States. So, nurdles are small plastic pellets that are the size of lentils. They are the raw material of almost everything plastic. So think about all the things you use in your daily life, to your kitchenware, to your sunglasses, to your computer, to parts in your car. Almost everything has plastic in it, and it was first one of these small plastic pellets that are then shipped around all over the world, melted down, added color, and made into the products. So these plastic pellets that I'm going to talk to you about, we are finding washing up all over the United States and actually all over the world. And so in an effort to try to figure out where these are coming from, we have started a citizen science project that I'll be talking to you about today. So how are these little pellets getting into the environment? Well, they're very hard to contain. They're small, lightweight. The wind can pick them up. The rain can wash them away. And so whenever these pellets are made at an oil and gas manufacturing site, they store them in these silos. And to get them out of the silos, they have large tubes that they hook up to a rail car or truck, and then they pneumatically blow them in there. They also have them to where they can gravity feed to the top. But every time they hook up or take off, a little bit of pellets can fall out. So what happens with anything that is on the ground once it rains? Well, it rains, these little pellets get into the stormwater, then it gets into the nearest creek or river, then out into the bay, then into the ocean, and then washes back up on our beaches. And so those are things that happen probably daily on a chronic basis all the time. This can happen anywhere along the supply chain as well. So as these rail cars or trucks are going to their destination to where they're going to melt the plastic down and make it into a product, these things can leak out along the way. And then less likely things that happen are like the ship container you see on the right hand corner over here. This storm that had come along, ship containers fell off of the ship. They broke open. These bags of nurdles are just washing out by the billions. So those things are usually documented well, and they can model where the pellets are going to come up from. And it's typically one large batch, so all the nurdles would look the same. This has been happening for decades. Actually, the first researchers that had documented this was back in the 70s, but they started mass producing plastics in the 1950s, and so this has been happening for about 70 years. In 1992, the Environmental Protection Agency came up with a document that they wrote called Plastic Pellets in the Aquatic Environment, Sources and Recommendations. And in there they list over 80 species of shorebirds that they knew about at the time that were eating these pellets. And actually you can see the intestines of a shorebird with about 10 or 12 pellets in there. And so if something like this happens, they eat that many, it can clog the intestine tract, and they get starved to death. Likely what happens is whenever these animals eat these pellets, they probably just pass them right through, which was the case with this sea turtle x-ray you see here. 2 weeks later, after this image was taken, the pellet had already passed through and the turtle was fine. The other thing is these act like sponges in the environment, and so they absorb harmful chemicals such as PCBs, DDTs, PAHs, things like that are, you don't want them in your body. You don't want to touch them. We don't want that for the animals either. And so those are things, there's a lot of research going into that right now. And then also the human health. So currently there is not a connection that these are releasing the chemicals and then getting into like the muscle tissue of fish or something that then we're eating. That link hasn't been made yet, but there is some research going on in that. So in 2018, there was a nurdle spill here in Corpus Christi, Texas, and none of the state or federal agencies knew how to clean it up or who was responsible. And so this is sort of something new that they haven't had to deal with. One issue is these plastic pellets they're not considered hazardous material. So that's an issue when trying to find a responsible party to pay to clean it up and things like that. And so we're currently working and trying to figure out what the roles would be of state and federal agencies. So because of that, we started up this citizen science project called Nurdle Patrol, because we wanted to see how long that spill was around and how far it had spread. And so we have this simple methodology where citizen scientists go out and they find their first nurdle, and then they start their clock for 10 minutes. And then after 10 minutes, they just count up how many they have. And then they go to nurdlepatrol.org, put their data into the reporting page, and then it shows up automatically on a map. And so this is what the map looks like. And this is of the United States. And these colors are the concentrations of pellets that were found in the 10 minutes. And so zeros, which is data, are the greens, and then as the colors get warmer, the concentration gets higher. So the purples, for instance, are over 1,000 pellets in 10 minutes. And so let's zoom in here to the Gulf of Mexico, which is where the majority of samples have been taken so far. But look at Florida, almost all zeros there. And why do you think that is? Well, there's a couple of reasons. It could be for currents. But then it could also be there are very few manufacturers or distributors of plastic pellets in Florida. And as you go west, those concentrations of plastic pellets being found get higher. Well, Texas, especially Houston area, has the highest concentrations of plastic pellet manufacturers in the Gulf of Mexico. And so if we zoom in to Galveston Bay, where the Houston area is, you can see there's quite a few of these purples, which is over 1,000 pellets in 10 minutes. And actually there's one site here in Texas City that has over 30,000 pellets that were found in 10 minutes. And so that tells you there's a real problem that, this isn't happening in another country, or it wasn't a spill offshore that's creating this, because these are way up in the bay systems and high concentrations of where these manufacturers are. So this is a real problem at the site for all along the supply chain for these folks that handle these plastic pellets, especially at the manufacturing sites. Another cool thing that you can do on the website is you can click on the color or the dot, and it'll give you all the information about, when was the survey conducted. What was the amount that was collected? In this case, it was 7,290. What was the location? Galveston Bay. And then it gives you the lat long, so you know exactly where these surveys were conducted. In February 2020, we actually came out with a sampling methodology so that we knew that everybody was collecting the data the same, so that we could compare all over the U.S. It's also important for folks that are going to be using the data set for future research or in future litigation. And so this is open source, so it's free. So you can just Google Nurdle Patrol sampling methodology. This paper will come up. You can share it, all kinds of stuff. So that's good info. So the latest stats to date, we've had over 2,100 volunteers that have sent data in so far. Over 5,700 surveys have been conducted at over 2,800 sites. And then we have 61 partner organizations that have basically taken on Nurdle Patrol as their own citizen science project. And then they use nurdlepatrol.org as the site where they put their data in. So it almost seems overwhelming, what can be done about this? Well, we think that stricter stormwater permits is probably the best way to go. So for example, in Texas, the stormwater permits currently say that a manufacturer can have a trace amount of suspended solids leave their property. And so it doesn't even mention plastic pellets. So we think changing the terminology and the language in the permits to say zero plastic pellets, flakes, and powders is not allowed. And so that's what we're shooting for. And there's some what we call a Texas Nurdle bill that's currently in the Legislative Council that will be going up to Texas this next year. And so we'd like to be able to take that template and take it to other states, because currently California is the only state that actually has plastic pellets listed in their permitting. And so that's an easy one. There's also Operation Clean Sweep, which is a voluntary program that companies can get in. But we'd like to see things that are mandatory. We've got a couple of different tools that different citizen science programs can use. So there's the Facebook page, Nurdle Patrol, where there's over 2,000 members already. They're posting on a daily basis on news about nurdles. If there's a spill, it shows up here within a couple hours. People are posting what they're finding and where. NurdlePatrol.org is where you go in, you can put your data, you can print up your own maps to be able to show. You can print it up digitally or hard copy and then take it to your elected officials and say, look, we got a problem here. And it's a Google Earth type platform, so you can zoom in to your community and you can show the problem in your community, which is really cool. There's also training videos and news and stuff like that on there. Nurdle Patrol just received $1 million to create these startup kits so that organizations can start up their own Nurdle Patrol citizen science project, or they can incorporate the sampling methodology into their existing protocols. So if you'd like a kit, you're part of an organization, email me at jace@utexas.edu and I'll get you hooked up. We're giving those out over the next 5 years. So why are we doing this? These are my kids. This is Jack and Parker. They ought to be looking for seashells and not plastic on the beach. So we're doing this for the next generation and making sure that this doesn't happen for another 70 years. Thanks to all the citizen scientists. And with that, I appreciate it. Thank you.